We all love crazy plot twists, but there are just some that as movie lovers we can't get over no matter how many times we watch them. Here are a few movie plot twists we just can't get over. Spoiler warning in full effect. American film director Martin Scorsese brought us very memorable movies such as Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, and The Wolf of Wall Street. But one of his most overlooked movies was his 2010 horror psychological thriller Shutter Island. In Scorsese's adaptation of Dennis Lehane's book, U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, investigates the disappearance of a murderer who was a patient at a hospital for the criminally insane. As his investigation on the disappearance continues to grow within the walls of the hospital, so does the battle of his internal demons. From the violence of World War II and the tragic murder of his wife from the hands of Andrew Laeddis, the most dangerous patient on the island. In a crazy turn of events, Teddy finds out that he is, in fact, Laeddis, who murdered his wife after she tragically drowned their children in a lake. To our surprise, his days on the island were all staged by the doctors to help him out of his own insanity. We spend the entire film watching Teddy on his investigation to find justice in a corrupt hospital system, just to find out that he's a patient there himself, showing Teddy's true instability and instantly making us hit the rewind button to watch it all over again.
You know, this place makes me wonder.
Yeah, what's that, boss?
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
Starring Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard, the 2009 horror takes place after the tragic loss of Kate and John's unborn baby. They decide to adopt a 9-year-old little girl named Esther, portrayed by Isabelle Fuhrman. They quickly fall in love with Esther, while their son Daniel is very hostile towards her.
She's not my sister.
Not much longer after bringing her home, strange and weird events begin to unfold in their household, leaving Kate to believe that little Esther is the one to blame. She quickly begins to believe that Esther is highly manipulative and may also be psychologically damaged. After John refuses to listen to his wife about the allegations, she calls the orphanage where a nun tells her that Esther has a troubled and mysterious past. It turns out that Esther is in fact the one causing these strange events, and that she also happens to be a 33-year-old woman pretending to be a little girl. Due to a hormone disorder that stunts her growth, she was able to hide her true age with just a little makeup and clothing. After killing John for refusing to sleep with her, Esther goes on to try and kill the rest of her adoptive family. This leads to Rose and Esther's battle to the death on top of a frozen lake, resulting in the imposter's death. The 1999 supernatural thriller The Sixth Sense, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, tells the story of Cole C., portrayed by Haley Joel Osment, who's a troubled and lonely little boy who is able to talk to the dead, and an equally troubled child psychologist, Malcolm Crowe, portrayed by Bruce Willis, who tries to help young Cole. Malcolm, who returns home with his wife after an award ceremony, is shot by an intruder, a man named Vincent, who turns out to be a former patient of his, who believes he was wrongly treated by Malcolm. Vincent then turns the gun on himself, ending his own life.
You failed me!
We later see Malcolm the next fall with young Cole as his newest patient. As we see the world through Cole's eyes, seeing the dead who tell him details about the past or things they want him to do, we find him reluctant to tell anyone these things except to Malcolm, who doesn't seem to believe him or take his story seriously.
I see dead people.
Malcolm, dealing with problems of his own, finds his once beloved wife drifting into an affair and seemingly not listening to him when he speaks to her. As Malcolm begins to grow his relationship with Cole, he begins to believe the stories that young Cole is telling to be true, and that Cole has this ability to help guide these ghosts with their unfinished business here on Earth. Cole later confesses to his mother Lynn about the things he is seeing, and at first, she finds it hard to believe him.
You see ghosts, Cole?
That is, until he tells Lynn that her own mother once went to see her perform in a dance recital one night when she was a young girl, and that Lynn had no knowledge of this, being that her mother was in the back of the audience where she could not be seen. He also goes on to answer questions Lynn asked her mother once while alone at her grave. Cole then gives advice to Crowe on his marriage, suggesting he talk to his wife while she sleeps, saying she will listen to him. Crowe, returning to his home where he finds his wife fallen asleep while watching their wedding video, is shocked to see his wedding band fall out of the hands of his wife, noticing he hasn't been wearing it this whole time, revealing he himself is a ghost, and thus leaving us in disbelief. The 2010 supernatural horror film, based on a story by M. Night Shyamalan, finds 5 complete strangers trapped inside an elevator in an office building, not long after a man jumps from the 35th floor, leaving a note suggesting that the devil's presence is approaching. Tensions begin to rise as the strangers start to argue amongst themselves, and fears begin to mount when they get viciously attacked each time the lights begin to flicker out, with no clue who is responsible for the attacks. On the outside, Detective Bowden, Chris Messina, is desperately trying to find a way to not only get them out, but also to find out who's behind the attacks.
I'd like to get a sense of who you all are.
As the movie goes on, we begin to dive deep into the lives of not only the strangers on the elevator, but of our detective as well.
My wife and son were killed out on Bethlehem Pike 5 years ago, but that's okay, because whoever did it is sorry.
Connections are made as to why everyone is in the building that specific day. As each person in the elevator gets attacked one by one, we find a mechanic, Tony, played by Logan Marshall Green, to be the sole survivor. At this point, it's easy to arrive at the conclusion that he was responsible for the events of the day. But that's when we find out that one of the individuals in the elevator is still alive this whole time. Thought to be the second victim, an old woman played by Jenny O'Hara, not only comes back to life, but reveals herself to be the devil. Tony is only then saved when he begins to confess about a hit-and-run accident years prior that killed the family of Detective Bowden. His confession releases the devil's hold on him, thus sparing his life, with Detective Bowden forgiving him. What's your favorite plot twist ending? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more of your favorite movie content here on Cinemash.